Hey, I'm Warwick and I talk about the business of creativity, where I help creative people make better business decisions. So this video is a little bit different. I'm sharing lessons of the creative process itself, which I've learned over time, but honestly, they're sort of tips that I'm telling myself right now as I'm launching my own business and building my own YouTube channel. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Number 1, do imperfect things. So I've got this idea that the creative process is simply making a mark and responding to the mark made. But the marks change depending on what medium you're working in. So let's say you're an artist. Every pencil line that you draw, the next pencil line is in a response to the previous pencil line. Like even the best artists don't know exactly what's going to happen on the paper. Like what they imagine in their head and what's translated are two different things. It's about making these rough marks and responding to them to then see the picture emerge. Let's say you're a musician. You're playing a chord and then you're responding to the previous chord to start to build melodies. It's bringing something from an imagined space into reality. But the important takeaway is to be willing to make imperfect things, initially at least, to simply make marks so you can begin to respond to them. Number 2, be an embarrassment. So the thing about making imperfect marks and just being imperfect is it's quite a vulnerable thing to do. My approach is to shift the goal of impressing people with your grand creative products to maximizing the amount of opportunities you create for yourself to be an embarrassment in front of those people. This shift means that you don't have to create perfect things, that you can put imperfect things out there and not expect to impress that audience. By committing to being an embarrassment, you're putting content out there and you're reaching an audience who might enjoy it, even if you don't think it's ready. Number 3, don't buy stuff. Creative constraints are actually a superpower. You don't need that new mic or camera or art supplies or that software with a ridiculously high monthly subscription. These things actually limit your ability to create. Think about it. If you had all the money and resources in the world, would you be making more stuff because of it? It's unlikely. What actually happens is you get constrained by the amount of choices you have. This makes that initial step of starting very hard. Like you don't know which marks to be making off the bat. Sometimes it's really helpful to put constraints on the amount of time you have to get something done. This also helps with making imperfect marks and being an embarrassment, because if you tell yourself you've got to get something out the door within 2 days, it'll force you to really concentrate on what you're doing, but it also forces you to share what you create at the end of it. Don't worry about being perfect. Number 4, get bored to get inspired. Allow yourself to disconnect from constant stimulation. There's 2 things that happen when you're scrolling through a lot of creative content. The first is you become quite anxious and start comparing yourself to these people who are maybe a bit further down the road to you or just have a completely different vibe. There's a saying that comparison is the thief of joy, and this happens when you're looking at other creative people out there. By looking at other people's finished products, it makes you even more self-conscious about putting your own products out. The second thing that happens is it actually limits your ability to be creative. Because you're being stimulated by so much information, your brain doesn't get much time to sit and ruminate and turn things over. The trick to being very creative is actually to do nothing at all. There's something that happens in your brain, which is called sharp wave ripples, which is when your brain is in idle mode. So it's when you're not doing something and when you're not thinking about something. It's like when you're in the shower and you get that sudden idea. What your brain's doing in this state is it's pulsing information across your brain, trying to make sense of memories and experiences, but it's also thinking about the future, trying to piece things together and predict what might be in the future. But you need to give yourself more time to just turn off to really access this space. Next is quantity over quality, at least initially. To really practice your craft, you need to drop that sense of imperfection and really just do it over and over and over again. This is both for your core craft and for putting yourself out there into the world. You're better off drawing 100 different portraits than spending 100 hours on one portrait if you want to improve. The same is true for putting yourself out there online. You're better off sticking to putting something out there for 100 days and working on 100 days on one thing to put out there. You want to remove the pressure on yourself when you're starting out. Just try hit goals in terms of quantity and not goals in terms of quality. The consistency is the thing that'll unlock your creative future. Number 6, creative cross-training. So remember how I referred to the creative process being making a mark and responding to that mark? Well, it doesn't matter in what context that you're making those marks. The thing that you're practicing on a cognitive level is making that mark and responding to that mark. And you can practice this creative process to become comfortable with that ambiguity and that ability to respond to the things in front of you. And you can start to be clever with the skills that you want to build. Like becoming decent at video editing is a pretty useful skill to have right now. Number 7, creatively collaborate. Building a network of other collaborators can really be a superpower. The creative industries are one of few industries where being collaborative rather than competitive pays off for the individuals. You see this in how you find your music. You listen to one artist who sounds similar to another artist, and that can be applied to any creative endeavor. If you like one type of painter, someone who works in a similar medium or in a similar style would be attractive to the same audience. And you're not stealing one audience for another audience. People who enjoy soaking up creative environments enjoy seeing the works of many different artists. And those audiences are truly shareable. When you collaborate with others, you get the opportunity to bounce ideas off each other and get feedback on what you're doing from the people who are closest to the lived experiences that you're having. And lastly, building creative accountability with other creators can be a real motivator. It really helps you hold yourself to account when you know someone else is holding you to account. Number 8, personal methodology. Build a personal idea of what creativity means to you. This can help build your personal creative narrative and offer people a rationale to why you go about creating what you go about. It's similar to reading the little cards that are put up in an art gallery. Like, it's interesting not only to view the artwork, but to start understanding a little bit about what the artist has to say. And simply by building your personal methodologies, you can start connecting with audiences on a deeper level than just the work itself. Number 9, failure literacy. If you're following the steps up to this point, you would have been putting yourself out there a lot. You would have been creating a lot of things, you would have been collaborating, you would have been figuring out who you are creatively, and all along the way you are going to have failed many times and been pretty disappointed, especially if you're looking at metrics like social media or comparing your creative outputs to other people's creative outputs. You need to build resilience around failure. Failure is actually an opportunity to learn. A failure today means something better tomorrow. If you set out to make 50 videos over a year, the 50th video is likely to be pretty good. Many of those that come before it are likely to be viewed as failures. But to get to 50, you need to go from 1 to 49 first. It's easier said than done, but try separate your identity from the creative things you're putting out there. Don't view the failure of the creative product as a failure of yourself. Hey, so if you like this video, please subscribe and follow along. Weekly videos to come.